Mr. Ridley, can I quiz you about one in, one out? We were told at a previous session with the Border Security Command, the National Crime Agency, it was all about disrupting the business model of the people smugglers. This committee predicted that all the people smugglers would do would be put the people back on the next boat and show that it's not disrupting their model, and that is indeed what's happening. So do you think, or does the Home Office think, one in, one out is still a viable policy?
I think the first thing to say is that the one in, one out policy is a very clear and deliberate move to do something different that does seek to disrupt the model, because as just discussed, the reason people get on a boat is to get a foot into the UK, or in almost all cases then enter the asylum system and, broadly speaking, either get grant of asylum or wait for time to pass. This is an illegal method of entry, and the one in, one out it is about saying to some people who come across, actually, that's not going to happen. You will get taken straight into detention and returned back to France. It was set up specifically, as the previous Home Secretary said, as a pilot to test a new and innovative model, to check how we could work it operationally, to check the partnership working with the French, because as well as the out, there's obviously an in from France, so it's a joint model. You are right that now 2 people who we have sent back have got back onto a small boat and come back. They have, in both cases, been identified and taken straight back into detention. The first of those is now back in France, and we will continue to test the model, continue to scale it up, because it is removing the reason why people are making these incredibly dangerous journeys in the first instance. The agreement with France was signed until next summer, and we are continuously evaluating what we are doing.
Have the French made any commitments as to what will happen with regards to people we return, or are they free to just get on the next boat?
So the French take the people who go back into their system, but they're not detaining them. So people are free to move. We are returning people to Paris. They go back into the French system, but they are then not detained. The thing we are doing in our operational work is demonstrating that if you come back out, you just go back again.
I'd like to move to digital IDs now. Now, one of the main drivers is to address legal working. Now, both France and Germany have forms of mandatory ID system. They have a bigger, blacker economy than the UK. So why do we think digital IDs will address the issue of illegal working?
So, we have been, over the last year, rolling out e-visas to people instead of biometric residence permits, so that we can do right-to-work tests on migrants. That sits behind the increase in illegal working visits we're doing, the increase in arrests that are coming as a result, and the increase in returns that are coming as a result of that. The expansion into digital ID that the Prime Minister has announced will enable those right-to-work checks to go much more widely. That will take paper documents out of checks for British citizens. That removes some of the opportunities for fraud in terms of fraudulent documents. It also enables us to tighten up the sort of risk of accidental non-compliance. But the second thing to say is that digital ID obviously provides the opportunity for lots of benefits beyond illegal working. It's an important part of us continuing to tighten up the regime around illegal working. The second thing I would say is, alongside it, there are a number of other things we need to do to make it harder for people to work illegally, and there are powers in the Border Security Bill to enable us to do illegal work checks against people who are in the gig economy, for example. So it's an important part of continuing to strengthen the regime, but it's not the only thing that will make a difference to the black economy and illegal working.
You've not answered my point about the example of France and Germany, where they have a bigger black economy, even though they have mandatory ID requirements. Why do we think it will help at all? Given that international comparisons is that it doesn't address the issue.
So what we are focused on is doing everything we can to make it harder to work illegally. There are a number of things we have done and will continue to do on that. And our objective through rolling out digital ID and making right-to-work checks expand across the whole economy with very sort of simple online platform. One of the things it can do is reduce fraudulent use of paper documents, for example. So I'm not familiar with the detailed comparisons with France and Germany, but it's one of the things we are implementing to continue to drive down illegal working.
Sorry.
Well, just to add, I mean, of course, it will also be about enforcement. So it's not enough just to have the mechanism to be able to do it, you've then got to enforce it, right? So the thing is that the plan needs to be to do both. So to both have an ability to do the digital ID check, and obviously something like e-visas is already proof of concept on this, but then you've also got to enforce it in order to reduce the black economy as a result.
And this might be an answer to my next question then, because the real problem at the moment is employers aren't doing right-to-work checks. That's the main issue. It's not to do with fraud. It's employers deliberately employing people in the black economy. And if they're not doing it now, why will digital ID make any difference? Are you saying it will all to do with the fact we'll just enforce it more?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely one of the things we need to do. There's a really important part of the implementation of the programme in terms of having the effect, which is absolutely about compliance and how we can improve and strengthen compliance, and then absolutely about enforcement, where either people are not complying in terms of doing the right to work checks, and at the moment where we come across that with immigration enforcement, we can levy fines for employing people who do not have the right to work, and then it is about returning people who we discover don't have status here who are working in the economy, and all of that has to work together. It's not, exactly as Antonia says, it's not just about the platform, but we have to have the platform to enable the checks to be done.
And you don't have to, if I may, you don't have to wait for digital ID to be able to do some of those checks, because in fact we're now extending the right to work checks to temporary and casual workers, because one of the problems was that was seen as a loophole. And that is work that's happening now, and we're obviously doing it with DBT. So it's because it is about work, we've got to look to respond to changes in how the labour market now operates. So we now have to extend those right to work checks to a larger group.
That was my last question.
Oh.
Do we need digital ID? If it's all about enforcement, why don't we just enforce better?
Well, there's other benefits of digital ID, of course, which is everybody has sort of one thing, and also it means that you can then do the check. If everyone's got the same thing they're checking, you can go on.
Yeah. No, so finish.
No, I could hear you were going to come in.
No, I was going to say, and look, in terms of the work we've done with e-visas, what you do, you make the right to work check is very easy for the employer in the first instance. All they need to do is get the code and the date of birth from the person they're employing. They can go online and do that in seconds. And secondly, nobody's looking around for a piece of paper that's a biometric residence permit or whatever else it is. You've got somewhere where you log in. It's got your credentials, including your status. So, you know, and immigration enforcement officers, when they on the basis of intelligence are doing an illegal working visit, they can check the right to work very quickly when they're there. So there are huge benefits of having this digitised compared to paper-based versions.
Thank you.